Welcome to American History Notes, where I discuss my conclusions I've drawn from studying American history, reading historians I trust, historical writers, different thing, and also primary sources like letters, laws, newspaper articles, journals, things like that. So let's begin. We're talking about wars with the Native Americans. And remember, in New England, they considered a lot of people considered New England as New Israel and the Indian as the Canaanite, and they were legitimately biblically warranted to drive them out and kill them. Um, so twisting the Bible, even though Tyndale said, made it clear that you're not when you take the Bible literally, you don't take things out of context. Yeah, and he talked about how the Canaanites could be your sins. You can't take and go, okay, I'm looking for Canaanites to kill. But that's what a lot of people believe, that New England was New Israel. In fact, Jonathan Edwards even talked about one of his sermons about the New Jerusalem was going to descend into the New England wilderness. So, keep in mind the thinking. So you don't have to agree with my conclusions that I draw, but you need to know about these things that happen. In New England from July of 1636 to July of 1637, the colonists and the natives suffered in the Pequot War. The Pequot Indians were accused of the murder of a traitor, and this led to reprisals by the colonists and counter reprisals by the Indians. A force originating in Connecticut destroyed a major Pequot base near Stonington in May of 1637, and on July 28th, near New Haven, a force of colonists from Plymouth, Massachusetts, and Connecticut wiped out the fleeing survivors of the first attack. The Pequot War and the threat of Dutch expansion led the New England colonies to unite in defense in an organization called the United Colonies of New England. The colonies were to share military expenses in proportion to their male populations, but not much was accomplished except in King Philip's War. King Philip's War, fought between June 1675 and April of 1678, was the result of tensions caused by colonial expansion. The Wampanoags under Philip raided into southern New England. The New England Confederation declared war. The Indians were very successful at first, but food shortages depleted their strength and many surrendered. In June 1676, a combined Connecticut Valley and Mohegan Indian force waged a successful campaign, and Philip was killed. Indian raids persisted until peace was concluded in 1678. During the 3 Year War, 500 colonists were captured or killed. In some report, nearly 20 towns were destroyed or abandoned. Further south, the Carolina colonists, concerned over the possibility of a Spanish and Indian conspiracy against them, attacked and defeated the Cusco tribe in 1671. There was intermittent strife with the Indians throughout the colonial period. In the early 1600s, while the French drove the Iroquois from the St. Lawrence River Valley with the aid of Huron and Algonquin allies, they had to fight another war against them between 1642 and 1653, and then again with the Iroquois Five Nation Confederacy, which had allied with the British against the French between 1665 and 1666. This flared up again between 1684 and 1689. The Dutch fought a war with the Algonquins between 1641 and 1645, while the Spanish in the far west, due to their mistreatment of the natives, had to deal with a Pueblo Indian revolt between 1680 and 1692 under a medicine man or shaman named Pope. The Pueblos finally spent themselves, and with Spanish pressure and trouble from raids by Apache Indians, they were never again a problem for the Spanish. In all of these conflicts, the Indians grew weaker, and many tribes were either annihilated or were assimilated into the European culture, with a few tribes still claiming membership throughout the eastern states. Some moved west but were faced with resistance by Native American tribes already established. In December 1702, Carolinian colonists and their Indian allies sacked the Spanish town of St. Augustine in Florida and conducted raids on the frontier with Spanish Florida between 1703 and 1704, burning missions, but the Choctaws prevented raids on the Gulf Coast French communities. The Abenaki, allied with the French, began making raids between 1703 and 1707 into the Connecticut Valley from Maine. 500 New England troops went to Acadia to disrupt disrupt Abenaki supply lines and capture fisheries in 1704. The most famous massacre of English colonists occurred at Deerfield, Massachusetts in 1704 when the French Quebecois forces under Jean-Baptiste de Rouville allied with Abenaki, Canadian, Kahaka, Wyandot, and Pocumtuck slaughtered 56 colonists, including women and children, and carried off captives for over 100 on a forced 300-mile march to French Quebec that killed many more. As with the Tuscarora Indians in the Carolinas, with the Tuscarora Indians in the Carolinas resulted in the slaughter of over 200 settlers and the defeat of the Tuscarora Indians, who were then moved to New York State and became the sixth nation of the Iroquois Confederacy. The Yamasees and Lower Creeks were more successful against the European settlers between 1715 and 1728, driving them from the territory west of Savannah. However, an alliance between the Carolina settlers and the Cherokees drove the Yamasees into Florida. The proprietors were so sloppy in conducting that war that the crown took over the colony by an act of parliament in 1729. The French built Fort Niagara in 1720 as a base of operations in their campaign against the Iroquois, while New England settlers fortified their frontier against the Abenaki. Back down south, James Oglethorpe in Georgia maintained peaceful relations with the Creek Indians and other tribes for a time. But the Creek Indians, a strong nation of Native Americans, would one day be unwelcome in the United States. Their days were numbered. We're going to start off next time with some influence of the Native Americans on European culture, because the conquered always influences the conqueror, and the slave always influences the master's culture. So this will be important for next time, and I really appreciate you watching. And have a great day.